Here's one of the mantras and mottos that I tell myself and my students every single day, which is that amazing deals are rarely ever found, but they're more so created. Here's what I believe to be the #1 strategy for buying cash flowing rental properties in the year 2024. Now, real quick, for those guys that don't know me, my name is Daniel Kwok. I'm an 8-figure real estate investor and entrepreneur. And hopefully within the next 5-10 minutes, I'll be sharing with you what I believe is to be the best strategy for real estate investing this year, but also how to find it and to execute it seamlessly as well. Now, that being said, the strategy that I will be sharing with you, I actually used myself to buy 64 rental units by the time I was 23 years old. So hopefully you watching or listening to this will be able to take the information and also be able to apply it and make money for yourself. Now, one of the things that I find like a big pet peeve with finance YouTubers or finance influencers in general is they like to just take their sweet time talking about what the strategy is and revealing what it is and wait till the end of the video or the episode to know what the strategy is. And just for the sake of your time, I'm going to tell you right now that I believe that strategy in 2024 is this thing called seller financing, aka owner financing or owner carry, contract for deed, agreement for deed. Honestly, depending on what state you live in, it's going to be called something different. Now, there's two types of people either watching this or listening to this right now. People, number one, these are the people that go, oh, I already know what this is, shut off, blah, 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 right? Now, if you're that person, don't worry. Hey, I'm glad you already know what it is. I'm going to show you how to get more of those or even how to get those, period, especially in this year of 2024. Now, if you're type 2 or the people number 2, I guess, you don't know what it is, which in that case, hey, welcome. What seller financing is, long story short, is typically when you buy a property, you would go to a bank, you would get financing, you would work with a loan officer or a commercial lender to buy that property, and they would underwrite the property and give you the money to buy the property. When in seller financing case is exactly what it sounds like. Your seller is the one that's actually technically giving you the loan. They are the ones that actually carry the financing for you to be able to control the property. Now, that being said, why is it the top strategy for 2024? Well, my friends, there are 3 reasons why I believe that is the case. Reason number 1 is that there is a bigger discrepancy in what sellers are asking for the property versus what buyers are actually willing to pay for and are able to pay for. And here's why that is. It's because over the last 24 months, we have seen this thing called interest rates move up and accelerate at a faster pace than any other time in history. And just like when you're buying a traditional single family home, or if you and your wife or you and a buddy, or just even you, which if it's just you, sorry to hear that. But if it's just you buying a single family house or a property to live in, that interest rate on what you get your loan is going to matter a lot because that's going to dictate the monthly payment that you pay to be able to afford that property in the first place. And the same way works with commercial buildings like apartments or 4 units or 3 units or duplexes that you buy for investment purposes. The higher the interest rate, the higher the monthly payment. And the higher that monthly payment, the lower you're actually able to collect from that property as profit. So for that reason, and because interest rates have gone up so quickly, faster than any other time in history of our country, well, that created a difference in expectation in what sellers are wanting for their property versus what buyers are actually able to pay. You have a lot of sellers still in the market, trust me, I know, I talk to them every single day, every single week, that are still thinking it's 2021, where interest rates for commercial properties are in the 4 or 5% range, versus buyers who today have to face the reality of interest rates being closer to 7 or even 8% in different areas of the country. The second reason is that, well, banks have become very tight and very strict with what they allow to lend on, meaning their underwriting, their analysis of the property is much more strict than it was, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And banks aren't able to give out loans as easily as they did back then, obviously because the cost of debt or the cost of money is so high, aka the interest rate. So for that reason, buyers have a really tough time going to banks and being able to get loans. Hence why it's so much easier and more effective to have the seller finance that for us. And number 3, why it's so effective this year in 2024 is because there's so much unpredictability happening in the banking industry, period. So banks issue out a lot of balloons and a lot of short-term debt, meaning that typically within 18 months or 2 or 3 years, the buyer has to actually refinance or restructure that loan to be able to continue to hold on to that property. And well, a lot of buyers like myself don't like the unpredictability. When we're buying, cash flowing rental properties that we want to buy and hold, enjoy the cash flow for a long period of time, we want our debt service, we want our mortgage payment and financing to be as low and as predictable as we possibly can be, so that we're not having to make any adjustments, or we're not having to have a scenario where the mortgage payment skyrockets and all of a sudden it wipes away our cash flow and we're stuck in the position where we're not making any money, or worse, we're losing money every single month. And by buying properties via seller financing and having the owner carry the financing for us, ourselves, the buyer, and the seller has the opportunity to be more flexible with the terms and overall create a win-win scenario, which is at the end of the day what we all want in the business and real estate investing world. So of course the question that we all ask is, well, how do we find these? And well, a lot of gurus and other people out there will tell you, hey, you want to do X, Y, and Z and steps 1, 2, 3. And well, I guess I'll be the one to tell you, you don't want to look for these. In fact, you don't want to look for sellers that offer seller financing, because 90% of the time, the terms that the seller offers are not advantageous to us buyers whatsoever. We're talking, they want the down payment to be closer to 40, 50%, which eliminates the whole beauty of investing in real estate anyways, because one of the ways that we make money in real estate is by leveraging our capital today versus future value, and just the idea of leverage in general. Or if it's not a 40, 50% down payment, they want ridiculous interest rates like 9, 10, 11, 12%. I've even seen deals where sellers want 16% interest rate on seller financing, or they want something ridiculous like a 5 or 10-year amortization, which obviously makes it really difficult for us buyers to be able to buy these and cash flow it starting day one. So that being said, here's one of the mantras and mottos that I tell myself and my students every single day, which is that amazing deals are rarely ever found, but they're more so created. Now, in order for us to be able to create these amazing deals, one of the things that we should always keep in mind and do is that we don't look for properties, but we more so look for people. And businesses do this all the time. When they have a strategy or a product that they want to sell, they don't actually advertise it to just anyone and everyone. They do a thorough market study to figure out, well, based on the benefits of this product, who are going to be the people that resonate most with this product. For example, if you're selling, let's say, Taylor Swift tickets, the last place that you probably want to go to is a nursing home, right? Versus a high school filled with, girls that would love to go to a Taylor Swift concert, right? You could tell I don't really listen to her music like at all. But the concept remains the same, right? These deals are never found, they are created. So of course that begs us the question, well, who are the people that are most likely to do seller financing, which means the people that would benefit from them the most? Well, let's run down kind of what the benefits of seller financing are, because yes, there are plenty of benefits for the seller. In fact, I would make the argument that the benefits for the seller actually outweigh what the benefits would be for you as the buyer. So some of the big benefits for the seller are, number one, tax savings. Now, I want to preface this comment by saying that I'm not a professional CPA. I'm not a CPA in general, nor am I a licensed finance professional or tax expert, pretty much stating I know nothing, right? But that being said, one of the biggest benefits that I have personally experienced with my sellers and seller financing is that a lot of times for individuals who own the property for a longer period of time, the tax bill for when they finally sell it tends to go up. Now, this tends to happen for two reasons. Number one, if you own a property for a long period of time, chances are the value of what it's worth today far exceeds and is significantly bigger than the value of when you bought it. Like if you bought a property in, let's say, 1985 for $100,000, I'm willing to bet, right, at 2024 that property is probably worth closer to $400,000, $500,000, maybe even $600,000, $700,000, depending on where it is. And obviously, based on that difference, we have to pay this thing called capital gains taxes, which for a lot of people could be upwards to 25% based on their tax bracket. So if you're talking 25% of that difference in $400,000, $500,000, that could be pretty significant when they go on to sell their building. And the second thing that they have to watch out for is this little event called depreciation recapture. Now, for those of you guys that don't know, and I'm going to be really careful here because I don't want to get into the whole tax mumbo jumbo and too deep into the technicalities. But long story short, to simplify it, one of the things that the IRS allows us, real estate investors and owners, to do is take depreciation every single year for normal wear and tear. However, when you sell the property, there's a thing called depreciation recapture, where you have to pay taxes on all the depreciation that you pretty much took over the years. I know, silly concept. Why even offer it if you're planning on having people pay the tax for that anyways when you finally sell it? So long story short, the tax bill for a lot of individuals who've owned it for a very, very long time tends to pile up. Now, what seller financing does to mitigate that tax is that it doesn't eliminate it, but at the very least, because you're paying that person over a course of 20, 25, or 30 years, it would subdivide that sale over the course of 30 years or 25 years, as opposed to receiving all that full amount in that 1 year. So by spreading out the course of that payment for that long period of time, you're now reducing the amount of gain or income by dividing it by 20, 25, or 30. Now, that being said, please be careful, because every single person's tax situation is very unique and it's very different. So I would highly suggest talking to a professional or a CPA that will be able to navigate your seller through this conversation, and also you as well. But all in all, the tax benefits are arguably the most important benefit to the seller when it comes to seller financing. Now, the second reason and the second benefit for the seller is that a lot of times it gives the opportunity for the seller to have their money make money. Now, it's no secret that the banking industry and the banks are the richest entities in the world, because they charge interest on the money that they lend to other people. And now the seller has the opportunity to do the same thing, because as a lot of you guys know, 3 or 4% amortized is not the same as making 3-4% of your own money. If you punch those numbers in a mortgage calculator, you actually find that for the first year, the payments that you're making to a traditional bank is actually closer to 66% interest, which is all profit that the banks are making. And with seller financing, you're giving the sellers an opportunity to do exactly that, make money off of the equity that they've accumulated over the years, which is arguably better than just throwing your cash in a high interest savings account or a 10-year treasury bond. And the third benefit of seller financing to the seller is that it actually allows the seller to continue to receive payment after payment after payment, especially if you're a landlord or a seller is a landlord that have been receiving rent checks for the last 20, 25, 30 years. You might not want that to stop. So it actually allows the seller or the individual that you're working with to continue to have a certain lifestyle that they've been having over the last 10, 15, 20 years, which for a lot of landlords and sellers is probably something they'd be really interested in. Now, to close out this video, here's one tip that I've learned to actually help execute and make all this into a reality. Now, 90% of the deals that you guys are going to be working with or looking at, or even just taking a glance at, is most likely going to be attached to a representative, aka a seller's broker or a seller's agent. In most cases, in fact, in all my experiences, the seller's representative or the broker is probably not going to be a huge fan of this idea. Now, let me tell you, the reason why that is for most of the time is because they actually don't know how it works or even what it is. Most brokers, and I love brokers and I love working with them, but most brokers just prefer the traditional sale, or if the buyer has cash, because it means there's no disruption, they're gonna get their commission and they're gonna make it much faster. So for me, the way I like to get the broker on my side and have them convince the seller to do seller financing is by simply revealing the truth about what it is. Because, well, if I was a broker, I would certainly like to do seller financing deals for two reasons. Number one, when you're doing a seller financing deal, because of the flexibility that the buyer and the seller has with their terms and being able to control the terms, you're able to give a much higher purchase price as a buyer to the seller versus if you were to go to the bank. And it just makes sense. Like for me, if I'm buying properties today, if I'm going to the bank and getting 7.5% interest rate from them versus if I did a seller financing deal and I get 3.5% or 4% from the seller, I'm now able to give a seller much more in purchase price than I would if I were to go to the bank, because my cash flow is going to be the same no matter what, because my interest rate with seller financing is so much less. So because I'm able to give the seller a much higher purchase price, which sellers are expecting in 2024, that's a win for me. But as a broker, that's an even bigger win. Why? Because how do brokers make their money? They make their money based on a percentage of the total purchase price, aka their commission. So if a broker's commission is, let's say, 2%, well, I would ask the broker, what do you want 2% of? Do you want 2% of a higher purchase price or a lower purchase price? And I'm willing to bet that that broker is going to say 2% of a higher purchase price. And not only that, the second reason, if I'm a broker, I would want to do seller financing is because, well, not only do I get a higher commission, but the likelihood of me actually getting my money just skyrocketed. Because think about it. If you're a buyer and you go through a traditional closing and you go through a bank, there's a lot of things that you not only have to pay in fees, like a loan origination fee, an appraisal fee, an underwriting fee, or other fees depending on what banks you use, but that process is going to take time, and there's actually less guarantee, because not only do I have to spend weeks waiting to see if the bank is going to underwrite the loan, but to also see if they approve my loan. Whereas with seller financing, as long as the seller and the buyer agrees and the buyer is able to come up with the money, then the closing can happen anytime, anywhere. Which again, if I'm a broker and my buyer has to go to the bank, there's now a third party institution that may shut the deal down altogether and not allow my buyer to do business with the seller that I'm representing. So this is a great way for you to get the broker on your side, to give them a call and simply say, hey, look, this is the idea that I have. This is what I believe to be the best fit for the seller, which, hey, if they've got a big tax bill, they owned it for a long time, it might not be a bad idea for you to target older landlords and older sellers, which is what I did to get my properties. But it'd be a great idea to call the seller and say, hey, this is the idea that I'm thinking, it benefits the seller, and this is why I believe it will be a win for you as well. So it's a win, win, and win. Now, that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this content. If you guys want more, then definitely subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you guys soon.